largest donation at the auction Thursday night, and the amount of money he spent buying at the auction at the gym show. He's kind of addicted to turquoise, right? Would you say you're addicted to turquoise? Yeah. That was also a big hit by Robert Palmer back in the 80s, Addicted to Turquoise. Is that right? Was that the name of the song? I think it was. Okay. Our collector this evening is Dai Masaki. Dai started leather crafts and silver jewelry under his brand Native Spirit, 1988. That was about the time that Robert Palmer song was out. I think so, yeah. It was at that time that he started collecting turquoise and has an incredible collection of some of the best turquoise in the world. There's a group of Japanese buyers who only buy the best, the rarest qualities. They're so polite. Joe Dan was telling me that he can put a whole tray of number 8 Bisbee and Lander Blue out for sale, and that the Japanese buyers will pick one or two from the trays, but only the best. Most buyers are happy to just have a piece of turquoise from one of these mines, whereas Japanese collect the best from these mines. And I appreciate you being here tonight. Representing the imitation developers, Russell Twyford III. Russell? He's been in the turquoise business since 1974. He's been a miner, lapidary, artist, and stabilizer of turquoise for over 50 years. He's a creator of the compressed nugget, and he has traveled the world, including China and Europe, teaching stabilizing techniques to multiple large production mines and lapidary shops. His knowledge is invaluable to the many people in the turquoise industry that he has generously helped about treating turquoise. Also, representing dealers this evening, Jay King. Let's hear it for Jay King. For over 20 years ago, he's been the owner, designer, and host. He began his lifelong jewelry journey by selling Native American designs to help him pay his way through college. He later became host for HSN for a show called Santa Fe Silver, right? One of the longest running shows on television. Yeah. How many years?
Okay, well, it's 28 now, but it started off, funny enough, as Santa Fe Silver, but then I quit doing Native American, and then it went to Mine Finds. They renamed it.
Okay.
So now it's Mine Finds.
Mine Finds. Jay King, glad to have Jay with us tonight. Also tonight, representing the miners, Philip Chambliss. Hear it for Philip. A miner, lapidary, jeweler, and all-around great gentleman. He's researched more about turquoise than anyone on the planet. If you ever have a question about turquoise mining claims, Joe Dan suggests you can call Philip. He may not take your call, but you can try to call him. He's a really nice guy and willing to share his knowledge with everyone. Great to have Philip here on the panel as well. Also tonight, our scientist is Dr. Aaron Pahlke. Dr. Pahlke. He developed an interest in minerals and gemstones, searching for minerals in eastern Montana. He obtained his Bachelor of Science degree from the University of Tulsa. The Golden Hurricanes, I know that. And also, if you ever see their mascot, it's supposed to be a hurricane, which I never knew. It's Oklahoma. Why weren't they the Tornadoes? Why aren't they the Golden Tornadoes? Well, they call themselves the Hurricanes, and they're in Oklahoma, which has never had a hurricane. But if you ever see their mascot, it looks like a soft-serve ice cream cone. The University of Tulsa. But excellent university. And Stanford University, whose mascot is a tree for some reason. Yeah.
It's a color where
a color. It used to be a tree. Now it's just a color. Yeah. I'm glad you didn't choose where you went to college based on their mascots. But and Dr. Pahlke started his gemological career as a postdoctoral candidate, research associate at the Gemological Institute of America, where he's now the senior manager of colored stone research. He is also a regular contributor to Gems and Gemology and serves on the journal's editorial review board. Thank you, Doctor, for being here tonight. Also, last, we were to have Ty Gibson. He was here last night as well, representing the Lapendaries. Ty's been cutting turquoise for 33 years. He learned at the foot of his father, Rick, how to select, grade, shape, and polish the gemstone turquoise. As you know, the turquoise industry has many multi-generational families. Many of you belong to those. And today, Ty's father, Rick, was rushed to the hospital with difficulties for COVID. So let's remember Rick and Ty and their family in our prayers tonight and this evening, as Ty won't be joining us on the panel tonight. Our presenter tonight has been working all year to make Turquoise United into something we can all enjoy. Wait, I thought that was Jacob. Are you going to do something else tonight too? No. Okay, all right. Well, let somebody else have a turn. That's mighty nice of you. Yeah. As most of you know, Joe Dan is less organized and kind of a last-minute kind of guy, but I think he's prepared tonight. Joe Dan Lowry has mined turquoise at many domestic mines, as well as traveling throughout the world researching turquoise. As a lapidary, designer, appraiser, he's also co-authored 2 books, written numerous articles, does education around the world on the subject. He created and curates the Turquoise Museum and has a unique and always passionate opinion about the people in this colorful industry. Joe Dan Lowry.
There we go. Thank you, everybody. It's great to be here. I would be amiss if I didn't thank my lovely wife who puts up with me a lot. So her name is Devana. And if you know her, and it is true that I am not an organized person, so I couldn't get this done without my son's help, Jacob, and my daughter's Danielle's drive. She lets me know when I'm in the wrong lane. So her name's Danielle. She's wonderful. Past that, I'd like to thank everybody who came out tonight, and especially the panelists. I know that this is going to be a fun subject that is personal to a lot of people, and it affects a lot of people's livelihood. It also affects culture and all kinds of things. And so hopefully we'll be able to put it on the table and be able to work from it and enjoy the conversation. So to start out, try to personalize it a little bit. My fascination, as most of you who are close to me know, is not turquoise. I'm fascinated by people. And when I was younger, my grandfather used to always travel the world and collect turquoise. And then whenever those people or whatever he was buying came to America, he would have these parties. And we'd either go out to El Pinto or go to a restaurant, or we'd go over to Grandma and Grandpa's and share our culture, our food. And it was always in my way, because if I'm 7 years old, I got things I got to do, not go to Grandpa's house and sit there. And one time, I think I was around 8 years old, I'm sitting on the couch and we're waiting for these people to show up, and they were late, and I was frustrated because I'm a kid and I want to play. And Grandma kept me on the couch, kept me still pretty well, and then these guys finally showed up. And when they showed up, they all greeted everybody, but they greeted my mom like I had only ever seen my dad greet my mom. And it frustrated me as a kid. And so I was telling Grandma, you know, hey, this isn't supposed to be. They're not supposed to do that. And my grandma patted me on the knee and she said, honey, it's okay. They're Italian. She didn't tell me what that meant. She just authoritatively told me they're Italian. And I was like, what does that mean? You know, why, huh? And I think that those kinds of things, and growing up around a family that was around a lot of different diversity and a lot of different culture, that's where I gave my fascination with people and the angles and the perspectives. And it fascinates me how everybody that witnesses a car accident has a different opinion depending on where they're standing or how involved they are. So you could, if it's my wife, whose fault was it? His. You know, I'm not going to say it's my wife's fault. I hope, you know, it's not. But so there's all of those perspectives. That's what I enjoy. Turquoise just happens to be what I grew up in. And also, as not one of the smart guys that ever made it to college, I am fascinated with kids because I think they're the next generation. And how do we empower kids? And so in the museum, I try to do a lot of different interactions with kids. One time I had a kid in there, and he was probably 7 or 8, and I said, "So, what was your favorite thing in the museum?" And he was a little guy, and he looks up at me, and he goes, "Sir, there's this bucket." And so I took him into the mining exhibit, and I said, "This bucket?" And he goes, "Yeah." So I grabbed the bucket, which, you know, his mom was like, and I handed him the bucket, and I said, "Okay, let's go find some turquoise." Why? Because if we engage one another, we can all learn together. And if we are smarter in the room, then we would be open to being questioned. It always fascinates me that whether it's a preacher or an imam or a teacher, and they're not willing to be questioned, they're just right. That's not teaching. Teaching is empowering others to be able to have a conversation for themselves. Then they become smarter so they can find your mistakes. I expect a bunch of these guys to find my mistakes. Why? Because that's how we learn. So I'm putting it on the table so that the industry can grow, because it is going to change regardless of whether we want it to or not, because turquoise exponentially is becoming more expensive. And as we are selling items that are more expensive, then we might just end up in a lawsuit or our reputation harmed because we're unwilling to be fascinated with turquoise. We want to control it. And I think the fascination, that color that we all have in our personalities, that's what's cool. All the diversities and all of us working together. So, that being said, turquoise is one of the most colorful gemstones in the world. So if you're going to do a lecture on turquoise grading system, what color should you choose for your slide program? Red. Anybody know why you choose red? You choose red because when you are grading colors and your eyes are getting tired, your eyes will recalibrate looking at red. And so tonight's color is going to be red, not turquoise. And I know you guys all expected that, so I was just letting you know. I also knew that it was red. So if I find my notes where I'm at. Very interesting. It really is. Isn't that? Thank you. Are you agreeing with me because you're going to kill me later? Or
no, I totally agree with you. I asked my son, and that's what he said.
Okay, there you go. I do that. All right. So one of the cliches that I've used for turquoise is I call it the people's gemstone because of all of the different perspectives and all of the different relationships. And so when you look at the slide program up there, and if you guys can see that slide up there, there's all kinds of varieties of turquoise in the one picture. And in the other, there's all kinds of varieties of people. And I love the comparisons. We can be tall, we can be brown, purple, green, whatever we are. We've all formed our opinions by what we see and what we hear. And when we form our opinions by what we see and what we hear, our jokes, like the Okie over here, his jokes are related mainly to Oklahoma, and we have no idea what he's talking about. But that's who he is. And so you don't get to just change somebody. You have to, in the brilliance of life, we get to meet people. We get to learn about them. We get to meet a piece of turquoise and learn about it. And so one of the frustrations is that I don't believe there's ever been an expert in turquoise, and I don't think there ever will be, because there's so many aspects to what turquoise is. You can participate in the culture, you could participate in the color, the fashion, you could participate because you met this miner one time. Well, that's gonna stay with you. So I am I'm a Los Angeles Dodger baseball fan who 4 or 5 years ago wanted the Houston Astros to beat the Dodgers in the World Series. The Dodgers used to have their club here, the Dukes. So you knew all the players. So when they went to LA, because I knew them, I watched LA. But Bregman is from Albuquerque, and he plays for Houston, and I don't know who the heck is on Dodgers because we're not their farm club. So what college did you go to? Who do you root for? All of those kinds of things matter. How come you can understand a New Yorker when they're talking and can't understand somebody else? And so turquoise is people engaged and people related. I find that fascinating. I'm not offended when Dai is trying to explain to me how to speak Japanese, and I hope he's not offended when I can't learn because I can't focus that way. But we learn how to communicate, and the communication is the key. So, in that participation, there's many different ways we're all going to participate. One of the other statements I like to make in life is that turquoise is greater than science. That may sound a little strange to a lot of people, but it actually is true. Just a sec. I'm trying to stay organized. Yeah, if you know me, that's not going to happen. Not going to happen. Sorry. Looking for something. Hey, Jacob, where did I put that quote from Hammonds? Really? Okay. Oh, it's on the slide, not slide program. Got it. Thank you. All right. Hey, it's difficult. It's not easy being me. All right. So when you have standards, everybody can learn and see something, but they may not be able to read it. But there's a commonality to it. So when you have a diversity, if you want to create a society, laws are written. And everybody agrees to the laws, which keeps everybody in a category. It doesn't take away your independence or your thought process. But we all hope everybody knows, no matter what language that's in, you stop. That's a law that the society of the world has produced, that standard. And so standards are important because it is how we exist in a society. The turquoise community is a big society of people who all have varying different opinions about a single gemstone. And so I find that fascinating. I love telling people turquoise is greater than science, especially when they're doctors of science, because you can't define turquoise only in scientific terms. And so those kinds of things are what make turquoise confusing to a lot of people. But we do know it's turquoise. We just have to figure out what the heck the sign says, right? But we know it says stop. All right. So in your categories, once you have a standard created, one of the things that people miss in this life is gentleness and mercy and kindness go a long way. Most of these guys up here, they are gentle people, all of them. And I enjoy that because you can learn from them and they can teach you and they can engage you to where that they can take your rough edge off, or they can give you the comfort and empowerment that you need to be who you are. And so I found this quote amazing. This is a gentleman named Lee Hammonds who did a lot of articles on turquoise and wrote a lot of things on turquoise, loved turquoise. But this is his quote in the Turquoise Annual. Sorry, you guys are on that side. It says, "No doubt many other people have devised systems of grading turquoise, especially that from their own minds. None seem to be universally accepted. Mine probably won't be accepted either." And these are his quotations, all right? Which is okay. Maybe someone will do a better job and we can all accept his work. When people work from that kind of honesty and weakness, it's attractive. It draws people to the categories that we may think are important that need to be discussed. That's what these men up here are, and I know a lot of you in the audience are the same. But he never did get credit for his grading system. It went by the wayside. Lots of grading systems have. Mine might, which is fine. But I hope that when they do, it does go in the history and disappear. The one little person who looks it up, hopefully that little kid that got the bucket and we went to the museum and mined turquoise, he'll say, "I knew that guy, and you know what? He was nice." Not, "I knew that guy and he was a jerk." Everything was about him. And I think that that's why so many things happen in turquoise that most people become confused over, is that we all can be the salesperson So therefore, what we're selling is the best and everybody else is bad. And that's not true. You don't get away without the diamond. You don't get to say, well, them and them and them are bad, because they're just going to look at you and say, what kind of diamond is this? And then they'll say, well, can we ship it to GIA to be tested? You don't get to bluff in the diamond industry. In turquoise, thank goodness, you can. I enjoy bluffing. All right, so our next category would be that the reasoning why turquoise is greater than science, and if you read in the paper, culture plays a huge part in how somebody appreciates turquoise. Totally huge. And so you can have different volumes. You know, when you take a picture, you have the people who take the whole landscape, and they're like, I'm right there, way right there. And then there's people who take the smaller picture. So here you have a picture of a snowstorm on the castle, and then on the picture on the right, you have a little snowflake that you can see. And when we have conversations with one another, a lot of times we're saying the same thing, we're just saying it from our perspective. But the perspectives could be same, or they could be similar, or we could wait for the sun to come out and then we'll have to worry about it. So those kinds of things are, to me, the philosophy of how we engage one another. The prisms, and I think turquoise is a great example. How we start our walk in turquoise, we can start it singly, and when it hits, you know, we look at a piece of turquoise, we're coming from an angle. All of us are. We're coming from somebody who taught us, we're coming from a tradition, we're coming from culture, whatever it is. When we look at that piece of turquoise is that prism that we're gaining that comprehension from. And it can go all kinds of different ways. It can be colorful, it can be bold, but it is definitely affects how we see it. So in the law, we have, take New Mexico law, the state of New Mexico's law says this, that as long as the color penetration of a piece of chalk is less than 1 millimeter, then it is still the gemstone natural turquoise. So if you ever take a piece of paper and you color it blue, a millimeter is a credit card, the width of a credit card. You take a piece of paper and you color it blue, by law, that would be natural, right? But the law was written by, so when our legislature went and found somebody who said they knew turquoise, he happened to sell beads. And the beads, if you just take and you take a paraffin and put it over the top, it'll gain the color, stay white inside, and they're really easy to drill. He made a lot of money, and it's still in our law. So not all laws are right. Turquoise is too big for science, and we don't have enough words in the vocabulary, apparently, to explain all about turquoise, which I find strange. Everybody has these different languages we all use. Is it reconstituted? Somebody told me the other day, reconstituted isn't even a real term. The problem is it's defined in the law. Not correctly, but it does have a definition. And so lots of confusion reigns in turquoise because we all come from different angles and we all come from different walks of life and different people who have influenced what we think about turquoise. But it's the few of the people who are the gentle ones who actually have the knowledge that can actually help us grow to where we can have a colorful prism coming out when we look at a piece of turquoise instead of just ourselves. So my daughter, I think, is the one that found this. Is it a 6? Is it a 9? So just because you are right does not mean I am wrong. That's a good definition for turquoise. You just haven't seen life from my side. Now, if I drew a line under the 6 or under the 9, that line would tell you what number it is, even if you stood on the other side. But in the turquoise industry, we're all going to, if you do that, we're going to stand on the other side of the 6 and say, you can't still read it. That makes sense? You guys are supposed to laugh at ourselves, you know. We have to be able to hear So who, what, where, when we learn turquoise will have a huge impact on how we think about turquoise. If you went to Dal Ward, who had the Fox mine, you said, hey, Dal, what's the best turquoise mine in the world? He's going to tell you Fox. He is 100% right. He's also 100% wrong. Can you name any other subject in the world that you can talk about with somebody and you're 100% right and they're 100% right and it's okay? I'll give you one. I'm married to the most beautiful, best wife in the world. I'm 100% right. But I also respect that you are also right. There is ways that we can build the foundation to actually comprehend turquoise that is not from a selfish viewpoint, but it's from turquoise. It's from the turquoise viewpoint. Whether you're from Iran or whether you're from Japan or whether you're from America, it doesn't matter because you have a single passion, turquoise. And when we look at it, we can appreciate the different prisms. So as I prepare tonight and give you guys what my opinion is, I am hoping that you guys will realize that I'm speaking from definitions of words. I'm speaking from the laws, which are very confusing. A little bit of science, but a lot of it has to do in turquoise because there never has been a standard. A lot of it is going to be my opinion. And so I look forward to the conversation. The graph that you see over there is going through and telling you wherever you got your information, you can track and see why people have certain perspectives. I'll give you a fun one about miners. In the 1970s, all of the miners did not know that their mines would no longer exist. They sold their turquoise. But eventually, there was no turquoise to mine to sell. Then the mines became famous. And then people like, whatever his name is. Why can't? Philip, thank you. He wasn't looking at me, so I was like the gray-haired one, and then I got confused. When Philip or somebody comes to interview a miner who has sold most of all of their turquoise, how big do you think the fish was that they mined? There is a lot of those categories that go on, and so checks and balances in all of those categories. These guys who do research like Philip, they take a lot of time going through and deciphering what is true, what isn't true, just in from the miner. Because if I have a turquoise mine and it sucks as turquoise, I still have a turquoise mine. It's like an artist makes a piece of jewelry. We're attached to it. We dug it out ourselves. And so if people keep telling us it's they're not interested or it's ugly or people can be mean, we're going to generally, if we don't have a whole lot of fortitude, we're going to get some other turquoise that's better than what we mined and then sell that as our turquoise mine. It's human nature. And so us guys who are coming from outside looking in, trying to decipher and put the puzzles together from all of the history of turquoise, there's a lot of work to be done because you have a lot of people who may have been in turquoise for 5 years and there they go, which is cool, except who did they interview? And how do we know that the information is right? So I expect these gentlemen to challenge me and even correct me if they can on the subject. And the subject tonight is the grading system. There's a bunch of pieces of turquoise up on the screen. You'll hear a lot of people say nobody can tell what turquoise is, and then they go and give their opinion of what they think the turquoise is. Well, if nobody can tell, that would be inclusive. I believe you can tell, but I don't believe you can tell all of them. But I think all turquoise can be graded. So those are the stones that are going to be in the pamphlet in the back that are actually graded according to the report of how we set this up. So I'm going to go through and try to explain in those categories how you would go about giving a standard to where that you could take one of those stones, put it to a standard, grade the color, grade the matrix, grade the cut, grade whether it's been filled or dyed matrix, all of those categories to where that then you could give a score to that one stone before you even have to figure out if it's a classic turquoise mine. Because some of those are not classic, some of those are, but they are all gradable if you have the right standard. So in the grading system, it covers a lot of different categories. On the attributes, you have the color score, and I'm reading from the category here on your pamphlet. On the report, you would have a color score, a matrix score, a ZAT score, which I'll explain, and that would have a total attribute score. And the demerits in a piece of turquoise would be the filling of the matrix, the dyeing of the matrix, and so you'd have a total demerit score. And you would take your total demerits and your total attributes, subtract them, and then you have your entire score. And after you have your entire score, then if it's a cracked stone, then you would take another demerit and you would have a final score. And I'm going to explain all of that. There's lots of details that are involved outside of just the scoring. You would need to know the condition of the stone, whether it's a classic mine, which we'll apply a percentile to. There is value to cutting. There's value to a documented piece. The weight, of course, is influential to the price. Whether it is backed or not is a usability issue, not a grading issue. The provenance can matter, and then there's others that an appraiser personally might find important to that piece, depending on what the piece is. So in developing the scoring system, the highest score you could get, it's a 0 to 100. 70% is attributed to the color. 20% is attributed to the matrix pattern, and 10% is attributed to the ZAT, which I'll explain. Your demerits, of course, are going to be your filling of it, your matrix pattern dye, and or if it's cracked. Classic mines will have the percentile scoring. The backing and the cut and the size will all be part of what the person would have to engage in. We, in the testing that we did of about 80 stones, the margin of error was an average of plus or minus 3, which I'll explain how we came to that. And then, of course, if you really want to do a serious grading system, then you bring your peers in to tear you apart. So everybody's here. So in developing all of those categories, then we go through and how do we corroborate and how do we give our study a sample? And how do we get to understanding? So if you want to appraise turquoise or if you want to give value to turquoise, the first thing you're going to have to do is find out what the condition of it is. Is it stabilized? Is it enhanced? Is it natural? Not according to New Mexico law. It's a joke. But the mine source, the recognition of that mine is going to be your second category because it will play a huge part in the ending value, not the grading, until you grade it first. So in the mine can affect the price and collectability, but not the grade. It's still graded as a piece of turquoise on the color scale and on the matrix and ZAT scales. A classic mine is something that is recognizable. You'll hear a lot of people say, well, nobody can identify turquoise. Well, if they have a piece of high-grade Bisbee, I guarantee that they're not going to give it to me for a Sleeping Beauty price. So something is wrong with what they just said. Because if you're going to say, yeah, you know, back in the day, my dad and I, we had some Lone Mountain turquoise, just by that statement, you are saying that you can tell the difference. Because we can't use mine names if turquoise is just turquoise. That would be a diamond. And so if you think of your conversation, try to relate your conversation that you're having to what philosophically you're actually saying. It's important. So you have the mine source in its category of rarity, and in case anybody doesn't know, if you buy Bisbee or Lander Blue or Lone Mountain in their higher grades, it is going to cost you more money. If you buy a stabilized piece of turquoise or an enhanced piece of turquoise that is has the pop and the color to it, it is worth more than one that just came out flat and dull. It just is. Those are facts Now we have to figure out how to place those facts. So in your color masters, this is the hardest thing in turquoise. So in your progression, and then getting a picture is a nightmare. But in your color progression, you have turquoise that is a blue. You literally can take turquoise, put a pure blue sample there and say that is green blue, that is blue green, and that is green. Or you could put a green sample in its greenest format, and it is, when you compare to it, then you would have blue green, green blue, and blue. You can do that. It's not hard if you have the full color range of each of those types of colors. Once you have that color range, if you go back and you remember those stones that were in that category to be graded that we went through and did for this on the back here, you take that stone, you put it up against the blue. Well, I thought it was blue. It's not. So you go to the blue-green or the green-blue and categorize the stone in its progression of color. After you have that progression of color, each of the different grades of blue, each of the different grades of green or blue-green or green-blue are given a point system. And so your point system can start at a 5, like it says on there. In case you don't know, we're on color. The 5, and then go to the 10. So if you're confused on, well, this turquoise really doesn't seem to be a 5 or a 10, that would make it an 8, 7.5 in those categories. As people get more and more stone to the categories and more of it develops out, there's more and more examples that people can do. Instead of having one stone for each color, you could end up with 5 or 10, which allows the eye to see the progression easier. But you can do it. Take your stone, put it there. How dark is that blue? And in case you don't know, the darker the color of a piece of turquoise, the more rare. So if it has a brilliant, deep blue color, it is worth more than one that has a light color. How it works. So color can be done if you have the standard to take an individual stone and find its color. And then that color that it is has a score, and you would take that and put it in the box. So we go on to matrix. Matrix is going to be the pattern. The pattern in turquoise can either be a host rock pattern, or it could have mineralogical patterns to where that it has different porosities or densities to where that it shows what we would call water web or things like that. So there's lots of different ways that you have what the industry of the world of gemstones would call an inclusion, which we call cool looking. And so there are supply and demands that have developed that give a ranking to what the rarest of the categories is in matrix. And in case you want to go back to the category of why did we rank color so much more than matrix, or what we call ZAT, there's an example on the screen if you watch it. It's going to take away the color, I think, yeah. Color is the influence to whether that's a pretty or bold matrix. Color is primary. And so in grading the matrix, subjectively done, I took and put the categories of the least rare, in my opinion, and all the way to the rarest being the spider web, the water web, the eggshell. And each of those categories were scored 2 points. So that if you notice, and I'm just going to do the extreme category, because when people say they can't tell, that's not true. We might not be able to tell all. If I said 3 words to you tonight, and I said Greyhound, St. Bernard, and German Shepherd, everybody knows what we're talking about. But if you went to the salesperson of the St. Bernard, he's going to tell you how wonderful the hair is and what angle the hair has to move, and that is a quality St. Bernard. Cool. Then you go to the next salesperson, and he said, this is a Greyhound. You don't want any of that hair. Right? Nobody's confused. When we go flower shopping and they say, this is a rose, this is a lily, this is a carnation, we're like, okay, and what kind of flower is that? And The lilies can have different prices, and the roses can have different prices, and a carnation is always cheap. Right? So it's not that we can't tell, it's that we've never done that. And so if a standard is created to that this is a rose, then you can learn. But just because you know this is a rose, this is a lily, and this is a carnation doesn't make you an expert. There's all kinds of roses. There's all kinds of lilies. There's all kinds of dogs. They even say that the poodle is a dog. Visually, that's a sheep. Just is. If you have a poodle, I'm not picking, I'm just saying it looks like a sheep. That's where we need the science guys to say, no, you're stupid. That is a dog. But they might know why. So you can grade the matrix. Whether we agree on how we grade the matrix is the conversation. So if you look at the one that has the matrix score of a 20, the one in the bottom right of your pamphlet, I'm going to assume you can tell which one is spiderweb and which one isn't. That's the beginning of knowledge. So we can tell, it just depends on how finite we can get in our knowledge and our comparisons and what our sample size is to be able to get the comprehension. Just like number 20 or the matrix score of a 20, if you look at that spider web, the matrix and the spider web to the one that is on 18 is heavier. It's thicker. It is less rare than the one that is fine. But it has a way better color. Guess which one will sell for more money? The one with the way better color. So the principles of creating the scoring system has to be able to match to what also is the supply and demand on the market, which also has to deal with the law and deal with science, and then we have to define the words so everybody's speaking the same language. But we can tell. It just is over most everybody, including mine, the amount of knowledge it takes for us to actually formulate the opinion and hold the conversation on the same number 6 or number 9. If we can get that far, we can draw the line and we can all agree, unless we're turquoise people, that that's a 9. Right? So we can grade the matrix. That, the next page is the hardest one. There is something about turquoise that goes all the way back. And I'm going to read from Pogue, and quote from Pogue, that says, and it's here on your paper at the bottom of the writing, with the title of Zat. It says, a good stone, in short, must possess an undefinable property. Undefinable. That's a scientific term, right? Undefinable? Property called the Zat, which is something like the water of a diamond or the luster of a pearl. A fine-colored turquoise without Zat is not worth much. And if you get really involved in this industry and you look at some of, I don't care if it is natural, stabilized, enhanced, even in anything, there are some things that just are popping in their color. The contrasts are there, the separation of colors. The colors could be stacked. You look at the stone or somebody walks by and you're like, wow, where did you get that? And what you're saying is, I see that. It makes the impression. And in turquoise, when it gets to that density or it gets to that separation of matrix with the color, those have become the most collectible. That collectability did not happen because of anybody by the name of De Beers. It happened organically. My grandfather collected turquoise. He did not know how rare turquoise was going to become. The miners mined turquoise, and if they really knew, they would not have sold it all. Right? But we all want to have and feel special in what we've done in this industry and included. And when we take the time to hear some of the older guys' stories and comprehend what they're saying and their passions and whatever, we can come to the same conclusions. So Zat is a word that has been around in the American industry to define that piece of turquoise that just has that pop, that depth of color, that brilliance of color, and people see it. Remember that fashion can be any color. When we're talking about what is the rarest, and most collectible, that has to gain the standard to where that people who sell something, correct me if I'm wrong, but by law, they really start enforcing wire and mail fraud at $5,000. And so a lot of places in Turquoise make $5,000 sales every day. And a lot of that is not worth $5,000. And eventually the buyers are going to figure it out. And it's going to cost people their reputation, whether they did it on purpose or not. I can show you guys online, guys on Facebook or whatever, that have no idea what they're talking about, but they're charging lots of money. And that part of the industry is starting to change because turquoise has exponentially got so expensive. And so there's a very important purpose in getting a standard to where that we're all talking the same language. So that is that. Now I know these are all pictures, but there's only so much I can do in a presentation. So size will also matter. If you cut a stone, if you cut a random stone in a random shape, a free form, that's the best way for the cutter to make money because there is hardly any waste. It's all carat yield out of a pound of turquoise. Whereas if you have to cut 8 by 8 circle millimeter or you have to cut a square, all of the turquoise that you waste goes off. And then that square or that circle is worth more money because there's less turquoise, it weighs less, so it has a different carat price, logically. How do you grade that? All of those things would be talked about. If it has a horrible cut, you know, the bevel is messed up. Or if you're making for Native American jewelry and you have an unflat bottom, it's going to cause problems in the setting. And so there's many things that an appraiser is going to do, whether it's the turquoise by itself or whether it is set in jewelry to be able to determine the actual value of that piece of jewelry. And so that's a general synopsis of how I would suggest that there is a grading system done for turquoise. And so what I want to do is leave a lot of time for the panel to tell me how wonderful I am and smart and that they had never heard any of that before and that they're convinced. But we don't have time, so thank you all for coming. We'll see you all next week.
Think you're going to get off that easy? Yeah, Joe Dan, excellent. Great presentation tonight. And now let's open up our panel, and I'll be moderating the discussion, and I don't want to talk, okay? It's all for you guys here. We won't be taking questions from the audience. If you do have anything, turquoisemuseum.com, the website, email them. You guys are familiar with Joe Dan and everybody, so send your questions there. So this will just be for the panel to exercise what they've heard tonight. So, who would like to start tonight? Not everybody all at once, but yeah, go ahead, Joe.
So, is that on? There we go. So I'd like to start to keep the ball rolling, but I'm going to ask again. You want an opinion on the presentation of the detail as it's absorbed? Is that what we're?
Any kind of peer review, and I mean, it's the turquoise industry, so we're not going to do it like a lot of places would do peer review or whatever, that'll be next. But until a standard is created with a grouping of stone to where that people can actually compare, then if essentially it stays with, I saw a darker piece of turquoise than that 5 years ago. Well, we can't work the scale from that way. And so whether somebody has that opinion or whether I have a spelling error, however somebody wants to come at the angles, there's so many different ways. How, like a lot of, we could say, well, how does culture affect the value of turquoise? And because that doesn't exist in almost any other gemstone. That's fascinating. you know? So whatever angle, and that's why you guys as representatives are up here, each of you are gonna be coming from different knowledge to tell me whether you see a 6 or whether you see a 9 or whether you're obstinate or.
Obstinate or not. Well, I'm not argumentative. I enjoy what you've done here. I've seen so much of this in my life. On the back of a business card or a notebook, and people imply that I got grade A, B, C. Well, let me see your A bag, and you look at it, and it's really not an A bag in another man's world, because someone else might come in with something they called Great Sleeping Beauty, and we find out, no, I'm not interested. Well, you told me to bring that, and I, my opinion is, well, that is not D, B, or C, A quality. So I think there's something to be said about creating a standard. I talked to Joe Dan earlier, and I just threw something at him. I said, I work with inlay jewelry and a lot of consuming repair from small stones that we utilize in repair. There's such a tremendous loss, and as I mentioned to Joe Dan quickly, how would a man appraise a piece of jewelry, an antique piece of jewelry, vintage jewelry that had matched old inlay stones in it, knowing that probably was cut unintentionally but intentionally, because that was the design of the sand cast or whatever it was, and it consumed a lot of turquoise, much more than the volume you'd see in a cut stone. So that kind of triggered something to me, wondering how someone would value that in terms of appraising it, because it's not just 10 carats, it might be a quarter of a carat. But my mind is stimulated to add more things to this concept of appraising, and I think it's well worth it, and I appreciate what you've prepared this evening.
Thank you.
Yeah.
As a professional appraiser, I can kind of answer some of that.
Good.
Part of the problem seems to come from the idea that the cost approach is applicable to all jewelry, and it's really not. Cost approach is cost of materials, cost of labor, markup within a specific market. When you're talking about a vintage piece, when you're talking about pieces that need to be valued as the term we use is whole properties, you can't appraise this watch by adding the cost of the crystal, the cost of the case, the cost of the gears, the cost of a watchmaker to put it together. You value this watch based on identical or comparable watches. And for me, I love the fact that this undertaking is happening, because in my world, there are no standards. There are no comparisons that can be consistently applied. And I hear you talking about having master stones for different aspects. And from my perspective, I develop and teach courses for the American Society of Appraisers. I've been an appraiser since 1983. I've taken every educational course that every appraisal organization offers.
That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. We've got way over $50,000 worth of equipment to try to establish qualities. And master diamonds need to be diamonds. If you have cubic zirconia as your master stones, they're great if you're going to grade cubic zirconias. But if you're grading a diamond, you need to grade a diamond with a diamond. When it comes to colored gemstones, there are a variety of established color grading systems, whether it's Gem Dialogue, whether it's Jimmy Wizard, whether it's Color Scan, whether it's World of Color. But they all offer a consistent comparator is what we need. So that if I'm looking at a piece of turquoise and I see that it is on the GIA scale, maybe it's a 4-6 blue-green, the tone, the saturation, and the hue are imperative. Modifiers can be in there, obviously, but there are no regulations at any level regarding who can appraise jewelry. There are no regulations governing who can claim to appraise jewelry, turquoise, anything else. Anyone in this room can put up a shingle and say, hey, I'm a jewelry appraiser. Doesn't mean you're a good one. And that's what Mary and I try to do is develop good jewelry appraisers using standards of valuation theory, principles of valuation, which a shameless plug, on Thursday there will be a 4-hour class on fundamentals of jewelry appraisal.
We're all coming.
But yeah, it's online. But masters, there are thousands of jewelry appraisers out there. And with the advent of all of the estate jewelry that's changing hands as generations that collected turquoise, us, our age, pass on, and our kids inherit this jewelry, they want to know what it's worth. They want to know what they have. And I truly appreciate the fact that you're taking this on to help the thousands of people out there that will have somebody walk in and they might have an extraordinary squash made of number 8.
And it's not the
But
same price.
they've never seen it before. They don't know what they have. They don't know, is this stabilized? They don't know anything about it. And it's out there and it's hitting the desks of jewelry appraisers all across the country. So I was speaking to your son earlier about this, and he said, nope, that's a question for him. You're talking about having a set of master stones. That's remarkably inconvenient because you're not going to cut up all of your samples to provide thousands of appraisers.
I'm not.
Hey, if you are, put me on the list. Yes, I saw some in the museum that I'd specifically like to have a sample of.
Just to push on that a little bit, one of the things that was difficult in getting this done, especially since I'm not an organized person, was not only keeping track, and I've been trying to organize turquoise for my lifetime and in my world. And I made sure that the masters that I created are not part of the museum.
Oh, good, so you will cut them up.
There's more that I can do by cutting rough and creating those categories, but I don't think we could make more than 10.
Yeah, well, my suggestion is World of Color is based on the Pantone color system, which is internationally recognized as the authority on color. If you can create at least the color part of this on an already established system, since color counts for 70% of the grade, we may not be able to accurately judge the ZAT without experience handling stones. We may not be able to accurately judge the appearance of the matrix without nice photographs showing this is heavy matrix, this is light, this is medium. But color, being 70% of it, there are established, consistent, all of the Munsell color tiles are incredibly accurately graded and consistent. And having your masters related to an easily and readily accessible system for color would be a huge thing for the valuation industry and probably people that buy and sell turquoise, because knowing the lighting that it's seen under,
Calibrations are a nightmare.
and so knowing, are you looking at 6100K? Are you looking at 5000K? Are you looking at 3000, 3400K? All of those are going to influence color vision. I deal with grading color
I got that.
daily. So from my perspective, making this system as easily distributed and disseminated will probably go a long way toward acceptance in a much wider international audience or even national audience or multiple levels of the industry.
Right.
That's just where I'm coming from.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
The other comment I wanted to make, and I'll keep it short, I promise, is there's a difference between grade and value.
Yep.
Markets, participants in the markets, buyers and sellers in the relevant markets provide data points that allow an appraiser to establish value for a specific intended use, whether it's replacement or estate tax or whatever it might be. But focusing on just a grading system to get consistency there, I think will then allow value to migrate to that grading system. And participants in the market will have a consistent comparator.
And supply and demand is the truest form of that.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
When we're talking about color,
We-
I've been looking at turquoise virtually all my life. The ZAC, or whatever you wanna call it, for us is if it pops, if it talks to me. And we generally view it in the sunlight. We don't view it under any specific spectrum. When I look at it, I'm looking for, does it have a sheen to it? Does it have depth to it? You know, what am I looking at when I have a piece of stone to me? Does it appeal to me? Is it, wow, just makes me feel good.
Yeah.
Okay, but when we talk about color, and when you're talking about color, I would like to see the science end of this come in and say, Joe has this stone here that he says is blue gem, and it's a blue stone. If we identify that on a spectrum, on the scientific end, then we have something to start grading with. But until you identify that, when you talk about color on the color chart, there's a billion different colors. There's no place to start.
All right, thank you, sir.
Like here's what he's-
Joe Dan, would you like to address that?
Thank
Again,
you.
let's
Thank you,
let's
Ray.
not take questions from the audience. We have something, you guys are
Ray didn't ask a question.
definitely, I know, I was on it. Even I
Everybody in
didn't realize
Turquoise
he
is
was on it.
passionate.
Yeah.
Everybody. Totally true. There are tons of colors. So just to give everybody a thought, most people are pretty addictive to their own personalities and their own ways. And Turquoise exonerates that. One of the ways I used to sign the first book I did was the only thing more colorful than turquoise are the characters who sell it. And it's true. We have passion, we have opinions in all of those kinds of categories. But when I had conversations with the GIA to get them here, I'm the one that brought them here because they are the only ones that can take that information, the knowledge that has been given them to this week and will be continually given to them, to where that they can judge it scientifically and the masters and do what you're saying. Because nobody else has the equipment, and I'm not saying that they don't have the equipment. Not everybody who has the equipment has a reputation or facilities all over the friggin' world. They are the ones. And so it's disturbing to me that scientists have that much power, since I'm not a scientist, but I'm accepting that. But I brought them here to Jacob's Turquoise United. I brought in a whole lot of different people who I believe are the remaining people who have knowledge in each of their categories to interview them. So anybody who wants to say, well, Joe Dan just thinks this, I haven't been interviewed. I facilitate. This isn't about me. This is about creating a system that is about creating the system. If you'll notice, it doesn't say Joe Dan's turquoise grading system. It's a grading system. There's no way I could write a grading system with my knowledge, because this person and that person and the next person and those people and people I don't even know are the ones who put anything into my brain that I think. This is not about price. It is about grading. It isn't about opinion. It's about rarity. If you want to go shopping and you want to participate in shopping, that's your opinion or what you can afford. But turquoise is one of the greatest and rarest gemstones in the world. I would rank it easily in the top 5, and I think I could argue it down to 3, which sounds stunning. I've done the research. Go find me some turquoise. You know, if you went and bought a diamond and it was, I don't know, $2 million, and then you give it to the young lady and off you go on your trip, and she loses it. I don't care where you are in the world, you can get another one. Same grade. You lose a piece of Lander Blue, Black Web 8, Lone Mountain, you're not getting another one. That's rare. But it also is the frustration. How do you catalog one? How is one ever going to be a comparative? And that's why in the system, almost all of the turquoise we went through and did in all of our comparisons never got above, I think, an 87. Because it may have killer color, but it just missed on the matrix. And that's okay, you can love it and whatever, but there is that stone out there that has both. And so the system has to be to the unknown and to the known so that it can be found. To give that as an example, in the museum, I have collected traveling exhibits that match everything you see in the museum except some of the pieces. Every category, if you go into the Gallery of Mines, I don't just have one. I have lots. In rough, in cut, to match, because there's the traveling exhibits, there's the home museum, all of those kinds of categories. So I've been doing this a long time, by gosh, and I have my comparatives. And so some guys came in the turquoise show who are just wannabe turquoise dealers, wonderful men. So, and they had a piece of Godber in their Riker tray that was better than anything I have in the museum. I think that's cool. Yay, discovery. But I didn't buy it from them. I told them. Because if we're going to broaden the principles of grading and the love of turquoise to anybody, it can't just be about us. It has to be about the society that is turquoise. Everybody. Everybody has a place at the table. So you guys up here, give me a question or...
Yeah, let's
don't
hear
pick
from a
on me.
scientist. Dr. Palke.
Yeah, so Joden, I'm glad to hear that you're trying to take science into this as much as possible, even though I think you are right to an extent. Turquoise is greater than science.
Got that on tape?
I would echo the comments from the previous commenter that I think as much as possible, so as a scientist, I'm thinking about repeatability. And so this concept of master stones and having standards is important. And you know this, you're already working on standards and master sets, but I think, like GI, we have spectrometers and advanced technology, but for color, which is one thing that was already mentioned, color is one thing you can really easily do in a standardized way. And so I would just echo those comments that I think you can use an established set like Munsell color chips to set benchmarks so that, if you lose a master set, you can always recombine that or put that back together. So I think that's one of the easy ways you can put some consistency and repeatability into this system. So I just wanted to echo those comments. I think that's actually a really great suggestion to use an established color system to put those boundaries. But so then the question is, because we're trying to field the questions for you, is everyone I've talked to at this conference really likes this idea of a grading system for turquoise. So everybody who's involved in turquoise thinks that this will bring a lot of stability and repeatability into the turquoise industry, which everyone seems to want. So I think it's great that you're doing this. However, at the same time, turquoise is different than diamonds. So with a diamond, you can know exactly the grade of the diamond and the carat weight, and you can get a pretty good idea. And you actually get like a really good idea of what that diamond should sell on the market. So I'm wondering, with turquoise, because there's other factors besides the grade, how much of an impact is the grade going to have on the price of a turquoise, in your opinion?
I really don't know. We have done so much in this industry that's why we all love it, is we're all rebels. I mean, we all enjoy the freedom that turquoise is. We love saying it's not a diamond, and so that's probably one of the most difficult things to accept a grading system is how do you handle that? And so we did, one of the categories we did in here, and this is not answering your question specific, but when we did the 3% of the sides, it's going to take time as turquoise is graded to a standard to create that answer. It can't, in my opinion, next year, there would be, we're going to have the complainers, we're going to have the naysayers, we're going to have the, all of the different categories that want to participate, which I think is good. Like I say, if you're not going to be challenged and you're not going to be questioned and you're not willing, it's just you and your philosophy, that's not science. And so the standard has to be something that you guys as scientists can place in front of you and say X. And so in those categories, that's why in all of these stones, that's how they're set up. So my vision would be GIA goes, oh my gosh, how wonderful, thank you. And does the color and does those kinds of things. Because my world and how I created the museum, I'm not interested in the museum being anything except built by the people for the people. And so the next step of that collection goes to the categories of science grading, all of the standards and things like that, using the turquoise for that. There is killer turquoise everywhere, but it's in those private collections that come to the appraisers, and because the rest of us are like, hey, you got any of this left? And it's rare. So because of its rarity and its uniqueness, that's going to take some filtering. How long did it take, if I remember right, 10 years to finish and correct the diamond grading system back from the 30s?
I don't know, it was before my time, so.
Okay, how about this question? How many graders grade a diamond to choose the grade?
Typically, we have 2 or 3 graders looking at the diamond, yeah.
Per diamond, right? So 3 of them would look at the diamond, give their opinions to come to the conclusion. I don't see why that would be a problem in turquoise. I think you could get close. And as far as the price points go, I really believe that price is supply and demand. I don't think there's anybody who is in turquoise that thinks turquoise is overvalued. Turquoise is undervalued. It is rare to find the best. And just because, I had somebody tell me one time, well, you're the only one that has that grade. And I'm like, yeah, and the other day, a blue diamond sold for $34 million, and whoever bought it's the only person that has that grade. Just because we don't own something doesn't mean that it's not the comparison. And so in turquoise, that's shocking to some of us because if like when I found that piece of Godber, and I have it right here if you want to look at it, I was like, darn, hey, that's really cool. I didn't get all upset, and I didn't, those kinds of things. I think in a year's time, as that goes out and there's peer review, I think that's part of it, the public and the science. But price, I think it takes care of itself. Turquoise only goes up. It's been going up and up and up since I was around. I can show you the invoices that I collect and spreadsheets, and you can see. So your grandpa bought Lander Blue for $2.50 a carat, and you're selling it for what? And so we can see the price. Hopefully that answered it.
Can I throw something out there? I want to throw something out here. No. I'm just saying, we're used to a grading system, I think like AAA, AA, A, B, and C. C standing for crap, the lowest on the bottom. Like Jay, if you've got 10,000 8mm rondelles, so a AAA grade are the cleanest, clear, beautiful blue. AA grade, maybe the blue isn't quite, doesn't have as much zat to it, you think? And A grade has a little matrix, B grade's a little bit more matrix, but we're talking more international grading, right?
Right. Okay. Well,
Throw it out there, Jay.
okay, so number
Make
one,
me cry.
you know, and everybody here, I feel that everybody has different view, but also of what they actually do for a living, right? How Turquoise comes into that of part of our living. Russ and I have similar on certain, we're volume, right? Massive volume. So I can't tell you how invaluable it would be for me to, because what's the big question when somebody has something for sale and they've got tonnage, right? What's the thing is, what's the price? What's it worth? Okay, there's no real standards that I am aware of, other than it's more that you're looking at the
Your
quality, how it's
experience.
kind of cut your experience.
experience.
What's this going to do? What am I going to have to do to work the material? What is a fair price? So anything that you could do, that you could get a general guide, that would be great, especially standardizing price is, because, you know, prices, you know, like, and then again, you have collectors, right? And the rarity, I mean, you have mines that, you know, that it doesn't exist anymore. Okay, so that is going to be worth a lot more money than something, say, that we're buying in bulk and volume, that down the road might be, I mean, look at Sleeping Beauty. I mean, you know, like, wow. I mean, you look crazy.
Tonnage was available, and now,
Yeah,
I mean, it was going for,
I can
we used to
remember-
buy it for $100 a pound,
Pound.
and now it was 15,000 a kilo.
Yeah, yeah. And that just goes to show you, right? But you had a commercial mine that you could even buy it for $45 a pound, depending on the grade of what they were doing and everything. And then now you look at that material, it's just like crazy.
Yep.
So, yeah, and here again, just speaking from what I do, it would really be great to have a tool. And I appreciate everything you're doing here, but it'll take a while for me to digest how you could.
Pictures aren't going to do it justice.
Yeah, you're going to have to. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
My pictures aren't going to do it justice.
you're gonna have to
GIA could do
simplify it.
pictures that were justice.
No,
or
and we
the
all
color.
agree that natural blue spider web is like the epitome, and that's the pinnacle. You know, no one could deny that.
Right, Lander.
But we have to grade it in quantity, and internationally, it's clarity. I think it's clarity is the number one.
That's more or less how just what you just said is how we've approached it.
Yeah.
And then also arguing what's it worth, and then rather how it would have to be treated to work. Yeah.
And since quantities are going, there's not really a tonnage available that there used to be. I think it's kind of changing, and it's kind of maybe evolving from clarity to character and color, for myself personally.
Yeah, workability, hardness, yeah. I got,
But
color
for
is the
Jay,
main
you've
thing.
got, you have to have consistency. When you show one, the 20,000 behind the curtain have to be
Yeah.
similar, you know, so.
Well, another thing too is, and it was, it's like appraisals for
You're
us.
appraising all the time. You're on air appraising and selling, yeah.
Right, but the thing is before, in fact, you know, they're not even doing that anymore. They're not having, they went from the appraised values on TV, I'm talking on the TV market, and they would say, okay, the comparative appraisal, the big fallacy in there is, in our case anyway, is that they would ask us what it's worth. Well, how is that appraising that you can compare? I mean, you know, there was, and the reason was there was no standard to compare it to, right? What do you compare about if nobody's ever really done that design or done that style, or, you know, or they didn't really know the material? So, yeah, and there's, I see where you have a collector's. It would be nice if you could standardize a few things, but what would be very helpful for myself would be able to have it would even in negotiating in large purchases, right? Well, you're saying it's worth that, but, you know, and if it is, great, right? But there's no comparison, right? It's all kind of
Yeah,
subjective.
on a personal level, we love this.
Right.
We love character, color, but on a professional
On a
level, I
commercial
think
level.
my first order with Jay and Kenna took 10 tons of turquoise, 20,000 strands. And that's a lot to cut. So I work day and night on
I
that
could have done
baby.
that in natural for you.
I work day and night on that baby. I ground a lot of stone. Yeah. Anyway, so that's just a different perspective, you know.
Well, my issue is the hard numbers. That's just me.
Speak up, Philip.
Yeah, I know. I'm the kid that nobody can not hear. But, full disclosure, I'm red-green colorblind. So that throws me in a whole nother category. But I hear something like 9% of men are colorblind and stuff. But, doing a hard number, looking at the blues, on that top between 5 and 35, what I might call a 20, Jay might call a 10. And that kind of screws up things and stuff, so.
Unless somebody is actually, explain it this way. If I had those stones out and we told the whole world, you have a stone, bring it. So they bring the stones. This one, you can literally, and correct me if I'm wrong on the coloring, the scales that are out there and the equipment that the science world has, you can literally gradation a color to which one is better, which one's more pure, all the way through. And so as those samples come in and they're placed, then within a certain amount of time, you have every color of blue, and it's complete. And then everybody can grade color. What I would hope would that photography and the calibration actually could get it right to where that you pass out, like they have books on flowers, books on dogs, books on horses. They're like, oh yeah, that's a palomino. You can get close in some things in turquoise, but man, some turquoise, it's just an original one piece. So those outside little nuances in turquoise aren't what we can focus on. If we take our category and say, okay, add to this, I think it's possible. And I think that within a short amount of time, all the colors are there. And I think that with technology of measuring instruments, I think you could take matrix and up to the spider web, and I think you could categorize the matrix, not just from me saying, hey, this is this, and this is this, and this is this, but I think that if you, like Jacob took out the color on the one, if you didn't notice that, he took the color out, and just showed you the matrix. Matrix, in my opinion, could systematically, easily be mapped, and a computer just tell you what the matrix category grade would be. And so I think that there's new ways and new opportunities if we collect the masters and we grow it, like I say in here, that in a year or two or whatever, you would have that complete set. And science would be the one that was coordinating it. We could start it with our eyes, but it would be finished in science.
Well, another thing that I have questions about is the cultural factor. The grades we have in Albuquerque would be different than in Persia, Tibet, wherever. So how does that fall into?
So in reading some of the history, it was fascinating that I was reading on the diamond. I didn't know diamonds didn't start their grading system till the 20s. I think maybe the 30s. Oh, really? 1955. It was finished in 55, or they started it and kept correcting it? '50s? And how many years did it take for them to complete? 10? Yeah. Right. So in creating the community, I think is part of it. In a long time. But the once we have the comparatives, it's just like when people, like GL was saying, people call me all the time like, I got some Killer Bisbee. How much does Killer Bisbee go for? And I'm like, give them the answer. So they come in. What do you mean you don't want to buy the Bisbee? That's not One, it could not be Bisbee, or two, they don't know what the best Bisbee looks like. So a lot of people don't. A lot of people who've been in this industry for years have never seen the best. And, but that's all right. A lot of people in the diamond industry, Dr. Palke, have you ever seen a diamond like the one that was sold for 34 million? Just one. You weren't special enough to. As far as the cultural aspects, I think that's huge. I really do. And you saw where, and I didn't talk about it here, but the cultural aspects, I don't know any other gemstone that is as complicated as turquoise is culturally. And that's a fascinating angle. And bringing categories to the table is part of it. That's why we brought Iran as a representative, Japan as a representative, and work from those categories, because we have to have a starting point that has samples. If I just say, da 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 da, pretty good, here's your grading system, that's philosophy. It has to be backed up with actual samples that are going to be given up, not owned, given up to the community, to everybody, to where that everybody can engage and see and learn, instead of somebody going, I'm just smarter than all of you, because it doesn't teach anybody. It's not engagement.
Well, and things can be a moving target. You know, my specialty was that turquoise market, 1890, 1910,
Yeah.
with Mike Ryan. And at the beginning, it was clear Persian, small, clear. And then the turquoise matrix fad came in. And that's what we're talking about today is the thing. So
Total
that's,
change.
things change over time. I have a great letter. It was from to a turquoise processor for Bradford Prince, who was the governor of New Mexico and had a claim on Turquoise Hill. And I remember this guy says, it's a great color, but it's got all these crazy lines in it. And, you know, and of course, I knew what the crazy lines was, and he considered it junk.
Right.
It wasn't worth messing with. Yeah, yeah. So it changes over time. So, I mean,
Chocolate diamonds,
yeah.
you know?
Which are industrial. Systems got started with.
You know, so everybody's like, idiots trying to sell chocolate diamonds. Well, that idiot probably lives in a really big mansion somewhere. You know, and it's just true, but it doesn't change the fact that a chocolate diamond is not, it became fashionable, but it's not rare.
Right.
And so in turquoise, we have the same categories and whatever. And so it's the starting point that matters, but we all have to have an archive so that we're actually talking about the same subject. As long as that number 6 or that number 9 is there, then we can have the discussion around it. We can be obstinate sometimes, or sometimes we could be at a 9 or a 6, but eventually I think that people will come to terms with why. Because most of us have never seen lots of turquoise. We see what we know. It's like Jay King giving us the privilege of coming to Turquoise United. We need somebody who deals in the volume, but we need Russell who creates the volume, because they have a different perspective. And whereas you and I are like, okay, will you buy a stone or two?
Yeah.
You know, that's our world. Our world is 1 or 2 stones. Our world is not whatever Mike quoted the other day. And so that's my point. I think it's possible if we're on the same subject, looking at the same samples, and then building from there.
All right, let's hear from another collector. Di.
Your turn. You're up.
If you have anything, sir, yeah.
You know, Di just got in town. He hasn't even finished reading. But he is one of the best collectors in the world and knows turquoise like very few people in grading the best.
And I'm still speaking traveler's English, so this is kind of a, oh no, don't look at me. I can't say anything, or what should I say?
Just just say, how's the family? They're well. Could you talk?
Well, what would you consider
Yeah,
the highest quality of color? You mean a blue?
yeah, and how the rendering of quality and matrix and everything. So if you can see a good, like when you look up the sky or landscape, and if you think that's a good look.
Yeah.
The same thing in the stone. If you can see a good landscape in the field, some good rendering.
So do you think the American standard and the Japanese standard are pretty much on par with each other as far as color, matrix, that?
Yeah, I think so. But Japanese is very weird people, so
Takes one to know one.
pretty picky.
Yeah, Vicky.
Picky. So, and myself is the same.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think myself is the best picky people.
Selective.
Selective. That's a good saying.
Yeah, you select the highest grade, the best material. And what do you think about green? Because I noticed you've got a beautiful piece of greenish turquoise on. Is this green or is that blue?
It's blue.
Oh, wait,
Oh.
I clean my glasses. I used to have blue glasses when I buy a lot of rough turquoise, and they were tinted blue, and I'd get home and I'd be like, really?
Yeah, so
All blue.
all blue. I like blue, and blue is rare.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And I forgot the word.
Green is gaining in popularity, though, I feel.
Yeah, I think I agree with that.
Not bad, but easy to find. So blue is more difficult to.
I think the green's gaining popularity because people kind of believe it more. That it's not, color shot or something. If you're going to color shoot something, you probably go in the blue realm and not green.
Well, but what about all the lime green now?
Well,
The
Yeah.
silver and gold and all of that.
oh, that. Well, we can talk about that. We're not on mic.
Okay, that's the true statement there.
Yeah.
So, just to change category, I think everybody has spoken. What I would like to ask Dr. Palkey is, he has interviewed a whole lot of us, well, not me, but he's interviewed a whole lot of a variety of people. And do you think it's possible? And gently, how weird are we?
I think it's possible. I think it's going to be a big challenge. And I think it might be harder than we all realize. I think the biggest challenge I think you can have is finding standards, not only for color, but for matrix. And I think you're right. Maybe there's some way you can use artificial intelligence or something to try to figure that problem out. Because that would be a very challenging problem for a human brain to think about, I think, is how, so I've got this scale of 0 to 20, right, so maybe sort of 2 to 20 for the matrix, but what is it specifically that changes from 2 to 4 and then 4 to 6? That's going to be a very hard problem to systematically find a way to answer that question. So I think you'll need some kind of big statistical way to look at that, and that's going to require lots of stones and lots of stones that are graded.
Russell, Mike, and Jay have tons of stones.
Well, there we go. So yeah, I think it's possible, but
Takes work.
and I think you're also, the other challenge I think is gonna be getting buy-in from the global trade, and that's gonna need lots of standard sets and finding ways to get master sets to people in the trade. So that's gonna be your other challenge, I think.
Right.
Now, about how weird you all are, I think I got a question, which I think
Is
sums
there a
it up,
scale
which
for
is-
that? Is there a grading system on
Yeah,
weirdness? Yeah.
It's right here on this. I still can't wrap my head around what ZAT is. Maybe it's my scientist brain thinking like this, but is ZAT just like a fudge factor? Like if you like it a lot, you get a good ZAT score, and if you don't
Yeah,
like it that much,
kind of.
it's
Kind of.
okay.
It really is. But as you get around Turquoise, and like so you went through the museum once, and you went through all of these interviews, and you heard all of the different opinions and angles that we were coming at things, which is, to me, fascinating. But each time, so the next time you go through the museum, or the next time you go into a gift shop or whatever, you didn't just now notice Bisbee is not the same as Sleeping Beauty. Now you start recognizing why that is the best Bisbee, or why that Sleeping Beauty has more clarity and more depth than another piece of Sleeping Beauty. But it's a progression that you have to learn, and generally there's no standards or samples that everybody can go and just compare this to this. And so if you were to say, well, what does Lander Blue look like? Well, if you pull out one stone and say it looks like this, that's not a large enough scale. And so I agree with you, the scale that has to be done so that people say, got it, is gonna take that time frame.
You're all weird, but I love you all.
Were you clapping because he said we're weird? Is your name on the thing? Oh, no. I'll tell you what, I will break the rule. One. Yes, go for it. And by the way, Ty, if you can, remember him in your prayers, because it is tough when your dad's that ill. But go ahead.
I absolutely appreciate it.
Yeah, I know.
I have Lapidary Studio. I was fortunate to buy a large amount of Dry Creek, the original Dry Creek. It takes a polish.
Yeah.
There's not another polish at that color.
Okay.
Comparatively. And once people found out I actually have this supply, that is all I get called for.
Okay.
But its color will be a 5 on your grading system.
Yep.
Yet I can get $25 to $30 per carat
Yep.
for it because it is such amazing quality.
And rare.
How does that work within your system?
I'll give you another one on the picture, not on this one, but, oh yeah, on the second one from the left. So if you're counting 1, 2, the number 34. Number 8 has great value to it because it's famous in its name. It has been marketed, it's famous in pictures, it's famously used by different artists and so on. So when you grade it out though in the color scale and you say, this is a very nice piece of number 8, and you put it on this color scale and it's way down there, way down there. So then you wonder, well, okay, so have I been wrong all these years, or the categories? And so I don't think we'll be able to get to that answer until we do 1,000 stones. Because I think that as we progress through those categories, then we would see that type of answer. But there's a ton of turquoise that is so unique. And the conversation, the samples and all that have to be placed to where they go. And I think the question answers itself. So why is it worth $25 a carat? Well, why is clarity so loved by the Iranians? You know, but they're starting to like Matrix. But why am I a Dallas Cowboy fan when I don't like Dallas? Because I was born as a Dallas Cowboy fan and still am. And so I think washing some of those categories has to do with our humanity. But turquoise allows that. That's part of the ZAT. That opinion, that whatever, I don't think that should ever be taken out of turquoise. And that I think is incorporated in ZAT. But you also, on our actual report, that's why we put the extra categories in the squares, because I think it's just like with GIA has been hearing from Russell and Jay and different ones about all the different terminologies. And so GIA has a specific format because they're scientists that they work from. But Russell could create, or Mike or somebody creates a new category, and they don't know how to test it in their existing parameters. They have to add it. How do you add it? Where's the protocol? Where's the standards to add something? And I think that so one of the conclusions would be that you would have a note, and that note that the appraiser is using has a value to it. And you should be able to explain it, just like you did. I know what you're saying, but how would we take that and explain it in the note section? So I think there's ways to handle all of the differences. It just seems crazy because we don't have any beginning point. And so that, I love the discussion. All right, no problem.
All right.
Just
Anybody
real
have
quick,
anything
too,
else?
the Italians value the lightest turquoise is the highest value.
Yeah.
And they pay a lot for it. I saw a ring a month ago, $455,000, that was really light natural turquoise. But it was a magnificent structure, actually, paramedical, and a diamond inside of it, and just like, but really light turquoise. So Dry Creek's awesome too.
All right, let's hear it for Joe Dan. A great presentation tonight. And all of our great panelists that are up here in their time. Joe Dan, you have something?
I was just say, remember the Gem in Geology and the articles, they have paperwork here that does some of what they've done in articles. So if anybody wants, I think they're out on the front tables, or there's some up here if you guys want to. They did an article on Persian turquoise. They did They did several articles on. So they have the Zhoushan, which is one of your bigger production places in Mexico and China. And so if you do, and they have an article on polymer, so they brought this as an advertisement if people really want to learn some more. So that has a picture and then a little bit about what that article was on, that you could track it down. Thank you all for coming tonight. I appreciate the time.
Yeah. There's also going to be a working group session during next year's United, and this will be for anybody that want to bring their best stones and help add to the standards. Also tonight, please remember Ty Gibson and his father, Rick, during this difficult time. Thank you so much for a great 3 days, and good night and safe travels back to where you all came from. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brandon. We appreciate our MC for the Turquoise United.